Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Together. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat Nashtapraeshu Padreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashoke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Yeah, so welcome everyone to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We're going to be reading from A God Who Dances, chapter 22, which is on page 318 in the book. And I'll have go around and everybody can read a verse or two of this chapter. But before that, I'll just give a little introduction. So, yeah, Narada Muni, he gets to know about things. So he had learned that Krishna had killed this demon, Narakasura, who had imprisoned 16,000 princesses. And yeah, so after killing them, then Krishna married these 16,000 princesses. So that was something quite astonishing to Narada. Not that he had so many wives, because, you know, other personalities also had many wives. We read in the Bhagavatam, like King Chitraketu had millions of wives. So the number of wives is not significant, but the fact that Krishna was able to completely satisfy his wives is significant, because Chitraketu couldn't satisfy his wives. They all wanted children, he couldn't have children, and then they ended up killing the kid when someone finally did have a kid, and there was so much fighting between them. They were all, you know, it was not a nice family situation. So, but Krishna, they were totally satisfied. And why was that? Because Krishna would expand himself to be with each one of his 16,108 wives in Dvaraka. And in such a way that each queen thought that Krishna was only with her, and that he was just giving her his full attention, and that she was the favorite, most beloved of all the queens. And not only that, but Krishna interacted with each queen exactly how she wanted to have a relationship with him. So, you know, they were individuals, so they all had their different personalities. Some were more introverted, some were extroverted, some were more into just like kind of like the home and the family. Some they wanted to go out and do, you know, wild and crazy things in the world like that. So some were very playful. They liked to like swim and sport and splash in the water. And others were, you know, more serious. They were a little more grave and philosophical. So Krishna would interact with his different wives in exactly the way that they wanted their dream husband to be. So they were completely satisfied. And the way that Krishna expanded himself also is significant. We were talking on Lord Ramachandra's appearance day. I put that chart up of the different expansions and incarnations of the Lord. So when Krishna expands himself, we hear about how there are other expansions of the Lord, and there are other, even great sages and munis can expand themselves. Like there's this Shobari Muni, and Shobari Muni, he expands himself into 50 forms, also to marry 50 different wives. But that's very different because Shobari Muni did it through his mystic potencies, and those were material forms which were limited and temporary, like that. Whereas Krishna, they were, and for Shobari Muni, each one was a separate form. It wasn't, like one form didn't know what. Anyways, it's a little confusing to try to fathom, but yeah, they were material forms. It's described like that. Whereas Krishna, we're going to see here in the first stanza, it says that in a single body, he gives sufficient time to 16,000 wives. So it's like Krishna expands himself, but all those expansions are still the same Krishna. And then someone might say, well, he doesn't he do that also as Paramatma? He expands as Paramatma, but Paramatma in my heart is the same as a Paramatma in all of your hearts, and same Paramatma everywhere. But no, because Paramatma is only a partial manifestation of Krishna, and he's also limited in his functionality in the world. Whereas the expansions of Krishna that were with the 16,108 wives, they were, each one was the original OG Supreme Personality of Godhead with all of his transcendental potencies. And the crazy thing is that Krishna would expand himself to be with all those queens, but then when he would go to work, when he would go to the Sudharma assembly house to conduct his business, all those, as soon as he would walk in, just before he would, I guess, get to the assembly hall, all those forms would go back into one form. And then in one Krishna would walk into the assembly house, do the business. And then when he would go home before going, getting to the different palaces, he would again expand into 16,000. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable how Krishna does these things. And so these expansions shows that Krishna is indeed the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because no other incarnation can do that. No other incarnation does that. Okay, so let's read a little bit. We're going to hear the introductory verse, and then we'll go into a nice description of the city of Dvaraka. So should we just start and go around? You want to start, Nishta, and then we can go.
When Narada the mystic heard that Krishna had been wed so many times that inspiration filled his saintly head. I must observe how Krishna in a single body gives sufficient time to 16,000 wives. How does he live?
But you can read two each, and then there's not so much pausing time.
When Narada reached Dvaraka, the sounds of birds and bees filled up the parks and greens of that municipality. As swans and cranes sang out refrains on lotus-covered lakes, the sage found temples, streets, and houses built without mistakes.
A web of spotless boulevards traversed the smooth terrain. Festoons and trees lined arteries and kept out sun and rain. 900,000 palaces lined brilliant avenues, each marble mansion trimmed and silver set with rows of jewels. A certain lovely area of Dvaraka stood out. The sage saw this was Krishna's own domain without a doubt. As Vishvakarma's masterpiece, where gods were often seen, its 16,000 palaces were home to Krishna's queens.
The palaces had coral pillars set with gems that shone. The walls were decked with sapphires, pearls, and other precious stones. The sage walked in a palace and saw serving maids who wore expensive jeweled lockets as they floated through their chores. The well-dressed palace guards allowed the sage to freely roam. He noticed that the ornate palace rooftops were the home of dancing, joyous peacocks who were pleased and cried aloud as they mistook the palace incense smoke for thunderclouds.
All right, just pause there for a sec. So you see here the description of Dvaraka city, and then within Dvaraka, there's an inner city, the Antapura, where Krishna is, where all of Krishna's palaces are. So it's kind of I think Jaipur is also like this, that there's the city of Jaipur, which is a large city, and then within center of Jaipur, there's like a walled kind of, there's like is it Jaipur like this? Yeah, there's kind of like a, yeah, nucleus, I guess you could say that. But there's a gate where you enter into that part, and then that's where all like the king's palace stuff is. Radha Govinda temple is there. The fort, yeah, yes. Okay, yeah, so like that. So the same thing was there was Dvaraka, and then there was the area where Krishna lived, the central part. That's what it says here. A certain lovely area of Dvaraka stood out. So that's where all the 16,000 palaces of Krishna were in that inner part. So now we're going to hear, so Narada enters Dvaraka, then he enters that inner city where Krishna and his queens live. And now he's going to enter into Krishna's, well, I guess he already enters into the palace, one of the palaces. And now we're going to hear about how Krishna receives Narada Muni there. Okay, so next reading.
When Narada saw Krishna, Krishna's wife with yak-tail fan was fanning him despite the 1,000 maids at her command. Lord Krishna, seeing Narada, arose and touched his feet. With folded palms he bowed and offered Narada his seat. Delighted with his guest, Lord Krishna bathed his holy feet and put the water on his head. Although he is complete within himself, Lord Krishna showed how one receives a saint. Aware of Krishna's purpose, Narada made no complaint.
All right, so we see that Krishna is bathing Narada Muni's feet. And usually the bathing of the feet is something that a junior person does to a senior person, right? It's a sign of respect, but we have Krishna bathing Narada Muni's feet. And it says Narada was aware of Krishna's purpose. So one might think, oh, that, how could he just let Krishna bathe his feet? But Narada made no complaint. So what was Krishna's purpose? Is that an example? For who? Everyone. To what? Okay. Yeah, that's good. Worship of the Acharya. Okay. Okay, so it's a duty of a householder to receive saintly people with great respect. And particularly the Brahmins. Narada Muni was a Brahmin and Krishna was a householder playing the part of a Kshatriya here in Dvaraka. And so his purpose was that's one of his purposes, was to set the example. And we hear that Krishna, he says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So dharma samstapanartaya means to reestablish the principles of religion. So the principles of religion, dharma, are very much linked also to culture. There's a whole spiritual culture that supports the principles of religion. So Krishna wanted to establish these principles very firmly, worshiping the Brahmanas, and especially for kings. And then there's another reason why he did it. Any guesses at that? Why else might Krishna wash the feet of his devotees? Oh, Adisham. Yeah, because that's his personality. We say Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmanitaya Cha. So Brahmanya Devaya means that's what Krishna does. That's like, he likes to worship the Brahmins. That's just his personality. So it's something that he would do anyway, even if he wasn't trying to set an example, because that's just who Krishna is. That's his nature. He worships Brahmins. So we can get some glimpses of Krishna's personality, and Narada Muni accepted that because he understood that this will be pleasing to Krishna, and a devotee in all circumstances just wants to please Krishna. So it'll be more pleasing to Krishna to let him wash my feet, because in that way I'm helping him with his purpose. So even if it seems like it's going against some kind of etiquette or whatever, but the devotee's duty is to always serve Krishna, please Krishna, and help Krishna in his mission. And so Narada Muni understood that. Okay, so let's continue.
All the proper rituals of welcome were complete. Now Krishna spoke to Narada in phrases nectar sweet. O Master, are there any goods or deeds we may provide? Saint Narada was smiling as he thoughtfully replied. Almighty Lord, you rule the worlds, you're everybody's friend. Yet you subdue the rogues and thieves who constantly offend. I only ask your blessings and the power to recall your lotus feet forever. I want nothing else at all.
Okay, just hold on. So here we see Krishna, he's even saying, he's addressing Narada, oh master, even though Krishna is the master of everyone. But yeah, in Sanskrit, he literally calls him Prabhu. He calls him, oh master, what can I do for you? How can I serve you? And then Narada, very characteristic of a devotee, doesn't want anything, right? We were just hearing that about how the gopis of Vrindavan are so exalted because they don't ask anything in return from Krishna. They just want to please Krishna, even at their own apparent expense. Okay, so now Narada Muni is going to move to the next palace.
The saintly guest excused himself and went outside to see still further demonstrations of Lord Krishna's potency. Inside the next large palace, he saw Krishna playing dice with Uddhava. Surprised to see him, Krishna said, "How nice." The Lord continued, "When did you arrive? I'm very pleased to have an unexpected guest with saintly qualities." The Lord seemed unaware of their encounter just before. Surprised, the sage did nothing, but took his leave and went next door.
So Krishna wasn't like, didn't I just see you next door? He pretended that like he didn't know.
In this abode, he found the Lord in warm parental mood. In others, he was bathing, saying prayers, and serving food. In others, he was holding morning sacrifice, and yet in others, he behaved as if the sun had already set.
So here we're hearing all the different things that Krishna does. So in every palace, he's doing a different thing.
The Lord was somewhere giving cows to elevated priests, and elsewhere he was listening to Vedic histories. In one abode, the Lord engaged in joking with his wife, while elsewhere holding rituals enriching family life.
Did we skip one?
Let's skip one.
Yeah.
Sorry. The Lord engaged in sword practice in one palatial home, while elsewhere riding elephants and elsewhere near his throne. At rest while nearby poets sang his praise, the sage observed the Lord consulting, eating, playing sports, and being served.
The Lord, should I read this one again?
No, just go to 16.
In one palace, Lord Krishna meditated on himself. Since he is God, how could he meditate on someone else? He served his elders elsewhere. Somewhere else he planned for war, while planning pious peacemaking with Balaram next door. Sage Narada saw Krishna make arrangements for his son and daughters to wed brides and grooms approved by everyone. He saw the Lord send out some couples, others he brought back for festive celebrations with the crowds they would attract.
Sometimes Lord Krishna worshipped gods, while sometimes he direct fine gardens, wells, and temples to increase public respect. He'd mount a handsome Sindhi horse and ride off to pursue the fearsome forest animals as kings would sometimes do. The sage observed the Lord don clothes of ordinary kind and walked the streets to understand the common person's mind. All-knowing Krishna incognito, kings may be required to do such things, but not the Lord, so Narada inclined.
Can I just pause for a sec? And so, yeah, this last thing here was particularly astonishing to Narada, and he thought it was really ironic that because he knows that Krishna is also expands himself as the super soul and is in everyone's heart and knows what everybody's thinking and feeling and willing at every moment, and yet he's disguising himself and wandering through the streets to see what everybody's doing. Like it says, to understand the common person's mind. So it says in the Bhagavatam that when Narada saw this, he just laughed. He was like, he started chuckling like, what, Krishna incognito? Like kings have to do that, but not the Lord. So now he's going to speak. Go ahead.
By studying your countless mystic potencies firsthand, it's clear to me you far exceed what I can understand. Would you be kind and bless me with an everlasting tour to loudly sing the glories that are so distinctly yours?
Okay, just stop. Yeah, so this is very significant because till now, see, Narada was just going to one palace, observing and being astonished, and going to another palace, observing. He wasn't saying anything. There was no conversation. He was just kind of looking and like, oh my God, next one. Oh my God. Literally, oh my God. And Krishna also wasn't really engaging with him. But now it's like, yeah, now finally he's speaking. And what does he say? So it's very significant what he says here, because he's not saying, oh, Krishna, you're so wonderful. Your city is so beautiful. And it's so amazing the way you live here and give pleasure to all your devotees and citizens. Please let me live in Dvaraka forever with you. He doesn't ask that. What does he ask instead?
Crazy.
To go out and preach. He's asking Krishna's blessings to be able to go out and share Krishna's wonderful glories with the world, with the whole universe. So I thought this was significant, that this is the mindset of a pure devotee, that they're not just looking for their own comforts or material enjoyment from Krishna or from the facilities that Krishna could offer, but they just want to share Krishna with others. They just want to learn about Krishna so that they can go and teach. So that's what we do. That's kind of our motto, is learn and teach others. So we learn about Krishna, we learn about the process of bhakti, we chant Hare Krishna, and then we go and teach others to chant Hare Krishna, teach others about the principles, teach others whatever we have learned about Krishna. So that's a really good example that Narada Muni is setting for us here. Will you be kind and bless me with an everlasting tour to loudly sing the glories that are so distinctly yours? Everlasting tour, because Narada is always traveling. He's just constantly traveling. He's the transcendental spaceman. He goes to upper planets and the lower planets. He even goes to the spiritual world, and he just keeps coming back. And everywhere he goes, he just gets deeper and deeper realizations of Krishna and of bhakti, and he's more fired up to go and share that with others. What's that?
He also went to see Prabhupada.
He did? Oh yeah, he said, didn't you see Narada, Lord Brahma? Yeah. Jai. Yeah, he visited the temple in London there. Anna?
Is Narada immortal?
Is he immortal? Well, he has a spiritual body. So yeah, I mean, everybody is immortal. It's only the body that dies. So yeah, now he has his spiritual body, so he doesn't have to lose his body anymore. Okay, let's continue. Chris, you were only halfway through.
Lord Krishna said, "Dear Narada, I sense that you are disturbed. My actions simply show how one should live within this world. You saw me worship gods, and when you came, I worshiped you. I did all this to demonstrate what mankind needs to do."
Because I bathed your lotus feet, you're feeling some distress. Although I am God, and you're my son. What is erroneous for sons to touch their fathers with their feet show disrespect? But if this son climbs in the father's lap, with he object?
In every palace, Narada saw Krishna's matching form, engaged in every duty pious householders perform. This vision was a special gift to Narada that day. As the sage departed, he was thoroughly amazed. While keeping 16,000 queens romantically inclined, Lord Krishna mimicked human life and helped improve mankind. If someone chants and hears about Lord Krishna's daily deeds, his quest for love of God is surely destined to succeed.
Okay. So one thing that's interesting here is that a couple of different times it's mentioned that Krishna is actually worshiping the demigods. And of course, it's emphasized in the Bhagavatam that he's mimicking human life in order to help improve mankind. So because they're people who are very materialistic, they don't understand who God is. And he's just showing them the gradual process, the Vedic system of gradual elevation. Through karma kanda, then karma yoga, then coming to knowledge, and then coming to bhakti. So it doesn't mean that, the demigods are superior to Krishna. Because sometimes people refer to, like, they cite the Ramayana that Lord Ramachandra was worshiping Lord Shiva, that Shiva must be supreme and Ram is inferior, because otherwise why would he be worshiping Lord Shiva? So here we see that sometimes the Supreme Personality of Godhead worships a demigod, not because the demigod is superior, but because to set the example for others. And Krishna, in his different incarnations, is conscious of the example that's being set for others, and he talks about that. He says, "Yat yat acharati shreshtas tat tat eve tarno arjuna." That whatever action a great person performs, common people follow. And whatever standard is set by that person's exemplary acts, all the world pursues. So, yeah, Krishna's just doing this to show people how to live. And specifically, he's showing a householder life, because he knows that after his appearance, it's the end of Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga is going to begin. Like as soon as he leaves the planet, Kali is going to begin. And in Kali Yuga, generally, most of the people are going to be in household life. So there's no use showing like how to be an ideal renunciant, how to be an ideal sannyasi, how to be an ideal brahmachari. Most people are going to be married. They need to know how to be ideal householders. So Krishna sets that example, and we're going to see that now as we move into the next section. So yeah, this next section is really sweet, because now we've come into Dwarka city, we've gone to the inner part of it, we've gone into Krishna's palace, and now you'll see how Srimad Bhagavatam is so intimate. We get such an intimate look at Krishna, because we're going to go right into Krishna's bedroom, where he's lying in bed, embracing his wife. It's really, yeah, quite a view that we get here of Krishna's life and all of its details. Okay, so let's see what Krishna's daily program is. Who's next?
Lord Krishna's daily life. Queen Rukmini would greet the roosters crowing with a curse. Each dawn it broke the Lord's embrace in which she was immersed. The fragrant breeze and buzzing bees would rouse the sleeping birds, who woke the Lord with songs as sweet as fine poetic words. Despite the most auspicious hour, Rukmini felt grief. For her, the night at Krishna's side was always much too brief. The Lord would rise for daily chores. For her, that was a shame, and all his 16,000 other wives felt just the same.
The Lord got up before the dawn, touched water, and began to meditate upon himself like any pious man. To contemplate the self-illumined Absolute Supreme dispels the painful woes of this illusory virgin.
We can just pause there for a sec. So here we see that Krishna, he's waking up early in the morning. He's setting a good example that householders should not take advantage of the facility that you don't have an ashram leader knocking on your door and telling you it's time to wake up. You're at home, you can do whatever you want. But still, householders need to get up early in the morning before sunrise, right? He wakes up with the rooster's crow. So rooster crows before dawn. And even though he's lying in his very comfortable bed, embraced by his very loving wife, and she doesn't want him to get up. She just wants him to stay there with her forever. Still, he's like, nope, I have to get up because I have my sadhana. So yeah, that's a very good example. And so he would get up, touch water, because he would purify himself, and he would sit down and meditate on himself. So like us, we get up early before dawn, take a shower, and sit down and meditate on Krishna by chanting japa, chanting Krishna's holy names. Okay.
The Lord then bathed and dressed himself, and in the Vedic way held ritual oblations to receive the coming day. He said the sacred Gayatri and held the rising sun. He prayed to gods, his ancestors, and sages one by one. The self-contained Lord Krishna worshipped Brahmas every day with herds of decorated cows and words of thoughtful praise. Each cow had silver-plated hooves and horns adorned with gold, and ample milk to feed her calf, each less than 1 year old.
Lord Krishna dressed in articles identified with him, his yellow silks, his garlands, and his famed Kastuba gem. He saw and touched auspicious things, and then, the histories tell, he had gifts to all his ministers and citizens as well. He passed out garlands, sandal paste, and pond to everyone, including wives, advisors, priests, and friends. When that was done, he'd take some for himself and then await his charioteer, who, guiding steeds and chariot, would punctually appear.
All right, so this is Krishna's daily morning program. And I was thinking that it's quite different from our daily morning program in some respects, right? We're not doing fire sacrifices, ritual oblations, and we're not giving cows in charity. We're not, what else are we not doing here? Huh?
Not dressed in yellow, so.
Not just we're not passing out garland, sandalwood paste to people. Yeah, so there's some elements here. So if Krishna came to set the example for common people to follow, then why don't we just study all the details of Krishna's morning program and do this? It should be our ISKCON morning program, right? What do you think? What's that?
A lot of cows.
A lot of cows. Okay, so we don't have that many cows. What else? Okay, yeah. So what are those kind of symptomatic of? Yeah, we're in a different time, place, and circumstances. So Krishna performed the morning program, which was perfect for the time in which he lived, which is 5,000 years ago, when the world was very different. People were much more opulent, and the culture was still very much intact. And so the principle is that we don't just imitate what Krishna does, or what anybody does, thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago, but we have a system that Krishna put in place, and this is what Krishna wants us to do, is to follow the program that's laid out by the current Acharya. So therefore, Krishna, he sets up the system of disciplic succession and he maintains it. Evam parampara praptam imam raja shaya vidu sakale neha mahata yoga nashra parantava. Says that he maintains the disciplic succession, and this is the way that he has established for knowledge to be received, for the practices to be passed down. And he understands that this is a perfect system, because that way the details can be adjusted according to time, place, and circumstances. And so he's like, don't do what I do what the Acharya says to do. Do what the spiritual master has said to do for you in your time, place, and circumstances. Yes, Brew?
One important difference is that that's the way of the kings. The ashram is like Brahmanic training, so.
Yeah, so also he's a king, and we may not be Kshatriyas, right? So that you could say that's Kshatriya Dharma in some respects, some aspects of it. Okay, good. So now Krishna is going to work. So let's see what happens there.
Are we on 30?
We are on 32.
32. Both Satyaki and Uddhava would join him for the drive. The palace women watched him leave with bashful, loving eyes. To let Lord Krishna leave was hard. His many wives would find, as he drove off, his loving smile entranced the women's minds.
As 16,000 Krishnas bid their loving wives goodbye, each Krishna could be only seen by those who lived nearby. Converging at Sudharma, the celestial meeting hall, a single Krishna entered from the confluence of all.
It's interesting, the word confluence. It's like, so many rivers just flowing into one river like that. All the 16,000 Krishnas just and walked into the hall. No traffic jam, chariots. Okay. I wonder, the 16,000 chariots must have also merged into one chariot, and then he didn't have to worry about parking space either. Yeah, they also, I heard that also, that they also expand themselves and they do the same thing by Krishna's potencies. Like when Krishna goes to Matil and he goes to visit the Brahmin and the king, then all the people who are with him also expand themselves. So Krishna can also empower others to do the same thing. It's pretty crazy. So if you go to visit, if you're like Krishna's friend in Dvaraka, then you might experience that. Okay, go ahead.
This meeting hall gave anyone who entered quick relief from hunger, thirst, illusions, aging, death, and every grief. As Krishna sat upon his throne, his own effulgent light illumined all around him like the moonshine fills the night.
A host of entertainment instantaneously ensued. First jesters pleased the Lord with an array of comic moves. Performers sang and danced with zest as fine musicians played. Then poets and historians recited Krishna's praise. One day, as certain priests intoned the sacred Vedic hymns, the others told the stories of renowned religious men. A messenger arrived as centuries brought the special guests to Krishna's court with this report of staggering requests.
Okay, just pause a sec. So yeah, so we're just, previously we were hearing just kind of like standard every day what happens at the Sudharma Assembly Hall where Krishna goes to do his daily Kshatriya duties. And now this is one particular day. So on one particular day, because every day different things, these were like the general things that would happen every day, the jesters and the musicians and all that. But then different days, there would be different issues that would come up, as of course, different things that they had to deal with there. So one day this happened, this messenger came from some kings. Okay, and we'll see what he says. Whose turn? Can someone please read? It's 37.
My lord, with folded palms I come, dispatched by many kings, who lost the rightful kingdoms and are greatly suffering. Jarasandha imprisoned 20,000 who refused to aid his evil conquests. They have sent me with this news. O endless Krishna, who destroys your disciples' terrors, we selfish kings are scared and begged for your holy shelter. As worldly people, we did not heed your good instructions. So you have come as time and humbled us with destruction.
Go ahead. Oh Lord.
O Lord of all, save the pious. We must confess that there is something that mystifies us. Jarasandha has broken all Vedic regulations, yet he's been able to put us in such tribulation.
Our happy royal lives were simply a grand illusion. We clutched our problems and threw out their ideal solution. Devotion to your lotus feet made without condition. And now our bodies are but corpses with big positions. Since you remove the grief of those who bow down before you, release us from our chains of agony, we implore you. Jarasandha has captured us like a herd of cattle, but you defeated him in 17 famous battles.
And allowed him to defeat you for your own purpose, but that filled him with so much pride that he freely hurts us. Because we're your devotees, he chose us to step on. Please rectify our plight with a deadly chakra weapon. The messenger continued, these incarcerated kings aspire for your presence and the freedom that it brings. They send me with this message and submit to your control, so kindly show your mercy to these troubled royal souls.
All right, so this messenger came with a message from the kings who were imprisoned by Jarasandha. Jarasandha was a big demon, and he was very antagonistic towards Krishna. And yeah, the reason that he captured these kings, that he chose them to step on, is just because they were devotees, because they were devoted to Krishna. Then, oh, I hate Krishna, so if you're devoted to Krishna, then I'm going to make you suffer. So he rounded them all up, and he was extremely powerful, so they couldn't resist, they couldn't, defend themselves against him. And he just like threw them into jail, and they were suffering there a lot. So it's interesting that they start off not blaming. They don't really blame. They understand that this is all happening, according to their, it's their own fault. They're basically blaming themselves. They're not saying we're innocent. They're saying that, yeah, that we've been ignorant, and we're in illusion. And so yeah, this has happened. Yeah, our royal lives, we were kings thinking that becoming proud and indulging, too self-indulgent with all the material opulences and comforts that we had. And so this has happened, and we understand that this has been for our benefit, but they're kind of like, you know, we've learned our lessons, we've given up our material attachments, and this has actually been very good for us. But now we want you to come and free us from the situation so that we can serve you, and also free us from the cycle of repeated birth and death. They're asking for liberation from jail and also liberation from, you know, material life in general. And so then Krishna's, you can imagine that everybody's sitting there, okay, pondering now, okay, yeah, we have to go and save these kings. They've given us message, we have to respond. And so just while they're about to discuss how to release, how to go and kill Jarasandha and free these kings, then Narada Muni arrives. So let's see what Narada Muni is going to say now.
At this time, unexpectedly, Saint Narada appeared, his face aglow and head adorned with tresses long and sheared. Delighted, Krishna stood, prepared a seat and bowed his head. Completing proper greetings, Krishna welcomed him and said, "This great soul who can travel through the universe at will, today has blessed our city. We are strengthened and fulfilled. Dear Narada, since everything is surely known to you, please tell us what the Pandavas, our friends, intend to do."
The saintly sage said, "Your illusory might bewilders Brahma and has made him contrite. My lord, I am therefore not slightly surprised. You ask this of me and maintain your disguise. Creator of all, no one knows except you what future may come and what others may do. Because we're caught up in this death and rebirth, you kindly descend to enlighten the earth."
You know everything, yet because you have asked, I'll tell you, King Yudhishthira plans a great task. To please you, he'll hold at incredible price the Rajasuya, the supreme sacrifice. Go ahead. Okay. Great monarchs and gods will attend this event, all eager to see you if you should consent to build the participants' spiritual wealth and bless the occasion by coming yourself.
Your presence is needed. It's well understood that you represent the auspicious and good. With you as one shelter, success is assured, for you even make Mother Ganga more pure. When Narada was finished, a debate at once ensued. The name Jarasandha put many in a fighting mood. Yet Yudhishthira was saying Krishna's presence was required. Lord Krishna saw Uddhava there and smilingly inquired,
You are indeed our closest friend and farthest seeing guide. We trust your expert counsel and shall do as you decide. Uddhava, seeing Krishna thus pretend to be confused, accepted his instruction and suggested what to do.
Okay. So, so here there are two things that have come to the attention of Krishna in the assembly there at the Sudharma Assembly Hall. One is there's a need to free these imprisoned kings. And second, there's this invitation for Krishna to go to Hastinapur to attend the Rajasuya sacrifice, this big sacrifice that Maharaj Yudhishthira is about to perform. So Yudhishthira is the eldest brother of the Pandavas, who are extremely dear to Krishna. There's Yudhishthira and Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, and Sahadev. So they're like very, very close, like practically like family members. Krishna, you know, Arjuna was like Krishna's best friend and like a brother. So, you know, Krishna was very much obligated and wanted to go to the sacrifice, because that's Krishna's thing, is he's got to show up for his devotees. Krishna always shows up for his devotees. So, oh, Yudhishthira is having a sacrifice. Everybody's going to be there. He wants me to be there. I need to go. But then, so he was inclined towards that, because Krishna's first thing is, my devotees need me, I'm there, like that. But then also these kings were in trouble, and they were also devotees. So maybe not so close as the Pandavas, but they're also devotees. And especially like the younger Yadus who are there in the assembly hall, they were like, yeah, let's go tear this Jarasandha apart. You can't get away with that nonsense. So there was like a little bit of a contention there within the assembly hall. Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? And some were saying, let's just go polish him off. And then Krishna said, but we can't just like leave Yudhisthira feeling like we don't care about him. And so, yeah, there was a little bit of a discussion and a debate about what to do first, how to do things, how can we achieve both. And so Krishna, he again set the example by just referring it to Uddhava, because Uddhava is a Brahmin and he's like a counselor, and he's also very dear to Krishna. And so, yeah, Krishna, of course, he's all-knowing, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Controller, but he wasn't like, all right, I got this all figured out. Just listen up. I'm going to tell you what we're going to do now. He pretended to be confused. He's like, oh, wow, we need to do this, but we also need to do that. What are we going to, Uddhava, what are we going to do? How are we going to handle the situation? So he sets that nice example of that a king should always consult the Brahmins first before making any major decisions. Okay. Our time is up. Any questions, Adisham?
You mentioned that Krishna displayed the example of an ideal grihasta, because most of us will be grihastas for Kali Yuga. And Kali Yuga, he comes as a shiny sannyasi. With Krishna's sense of humor, or what's the deal here?
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that the only reason that Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, he didn't come to set the example that we should all take sannyas, but he did it as a preaching strategy. So the example that he sets for us with taking sannyas is we should do whatever is necessary to give people the holy name, to give people Krishna consciousness. So in that case, some people were chanting, the simple people, all over Navadvip and South India, they were chanting, but he was noticing that these Mayavadi scholars, the Mayavadi sannyasis, who were very much like in power, they had a lot of influence in society at that time, they weren't. They were actually like criticizing him for chanting and dancing in the street, and they calling him a lunatic and a sentimentalist and all these things. So Lord Chaitanya was thinking, I need to catch these Mayavadi sannyasis, and the only way that I can do it is to take sannyas from a Mayavadi guru, and then they'll accept me as one of them, and then they'll honor me, they'll listen to me, and I'll tell them to chant Hare Krishna and dance in the streets. And that's what he did, and it worked. So yeah, we don't need to take sannyas, and especially not from a Mayavadi sannyasi. We just need to chant Hare Krishna and teach it to others in effective ways. So that's the example he sets. Yes, Nitai. And then Rich.
So I was just reflecting that Krishna did different things. Like first, he showed the example of how to bathe devotees' feet. That was something we said we should follow, but then he did things as a king that we should not imitate, he said. And then what Adi Shankar was saying, he came as sannyasi, but it's a different purpose to that. I was thinking we cannot straightly like understand Krishna's activities or even what the Shastra says. Like we need, like you were saying, the Acharya or like a sadhu who can explain them to us and explain the context behind these different actions.
Right.
We don't have the capacity or the right to straight understand Krishna's actions. So we're fortunate that we have that around us in our society.
Yeah. Yeah. So when Krishna came to establish religious principles, he didn't come to establish religious details. The details are up to the acharyas to establish, but the principles stay the same. So we don't necessarily wash the feet of every devotee that comes to Krishna house. We rarely do that. In fact, we almost never do that. But Krishna would do it every single time. So that's a detail of how, but the principle is to show respect. The principle is to show respect to senior devotees and exalted, saintly personalities that come into our presence. So we do that in other ways, right? We offer them prasadam and we make some jokes, make them laugh, make them feel comfortable and happy and friendly to them. And so the principle is followed, that we make them feel comfortable, we make them feel welcome, we satisfy whatever needs they might have. But we do it we maintain the principle, but the details of how that's done is different. Because sure, the average saintly American who would walk through our door probably wouldn't be very happy with their feet getting washed. They'd probably rather get a nice plate of prasadam and have someone just sit and just joke with them. Right? So it's about pleasing the devotees. And how we please the devotees, that's according to the devotees, right? So it's desha, kala, patra. Usually we say time, place, circumstance, but it's actually desha means the place, kala means the time, and patra means the person, the candidate, the individual that you're dealing with. So you have to deal with people as individuals and not just like, this is the Vedic culture, so this is what I'm going to force on you, whether you like it or not. It's about what does the individual actually like? What's going to make them happy and comfortable? Okay, Rich.
Was Janasardana the bull demon?
No, Jarasandha was a human demon. But he was he's the one who was born in 2 pieces. And then yeah, so his mother thought, oh my God, that was a not a very good delivery. And so she thought, well, he's either dead or he's gonna die, and it's hopeless here. So she just chucked the 2 pieces of the baby's body into the woods. And then this witch, this like woman who lived, this tribal woman who had some mystic black magic powers, she saw the 2 pieces and she's like, oh, what a shame he's in 2 pieces. It's such a beautiful baby otherwise. So she used her mystic potencies and she kind of glued him together. And then he became a, beautiful, powerful personality. He grew up and he became Jarasandha, but he was a demon.
Her name was Jara.
Her name was Jara, yeah, and Sanda means to join. So his name literally means joined together by this witch named Jara. So everybody knew his story by his name.
Thank you.
And then after, when there was a fight, well, you're going to hear about this, so spoiler alert here. But after there's a fight and Bhima's fighting with Jarasandha, and Jarasandha is so powerful that even Bhima can't beat him. They're like equally matched. And Bhima's stronger, but Jarasandha's got more like moves. He knows the moves. He has more fighting skill, martial skill. So Bhima's getting tired. And so he's thinking Jarasandha is going to beat him. And then Krishna, the next day while they're fighting, Krishna says, don't worry, I'll show you how you can kill him. And so Krishna picks up a stick that's like shaped like a Y, like a twig, and he pulls on the 2 ends and splits the twig down the middle. And that way Bhima, he realizes that, okay, I know how to kill this guy. And he gets him down on the ground and he puts 1 foot on one of his legs and he pulls the other one. He just rips him into 2 pieces that along the seam where he was joined. So, yeah. And then he threw, he threw it. Do we have time for another question? Okay, last question.
Just a detail. So when she threw the parts, then again they united. So Krishna did the sign of throwing different on opposite side. So then
they can come together again. Okay, good. Yeah. We'll hear more about that in the near future, I think. It's coming up. Huh? Oh, it's tomorrow? Oh, sorry.
No.
All right, well, I'm sure you'll get more details tonight. So, Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi.